Good morning, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Unframe of Mind show. Today, Anthony and I speak to a guest by the name of Bradley Thomas from erasethestate.com. After the recent events in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and everything that's surrounding it, I wanted to have Bradley on to discuss some maybe possible solutions from an anarcho-capitalist, libertarian-style perspective. So stay tuned for our conversation with Bradley Thomas.
You're listening to the Unframe of Mind show, the place to have the most mind-stretching, unprotected, intellectual intercourse of your life. Your hosts battle the forces of evil by lobbing fiery balls of truth, reason, and evidence over safe room walls.
Alrighty, so before we get into the main topic of everything, Bradley, I just wanted to ask you to just tell the audience who you are, what is it that you do, and what, the website, just give people your vital statistics, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
And a little bit about me is I'm creator of a website called Erase the State, which, as you might infer from the name, is really steeped in anarcho-capitalist theory, Austrian economics. So I produce a lot of articles that's posted up there. Folks can follow me on Twitter, Bradley Thomas at Erase State. And really my background and where I came from was more of a traditional conservative background, but just over time, just getting being exposed to more of the readings of more libertarians and anarchists like Murray Rothbard and so forth. I just kind of gradually took that next step into that. And really the reason I put up the website is just because communicating our ideas is so important today. And I really felt it important. And, all the books and everything that I've read and have studied and learned over the years, these ideas you become really passionate about and you want to share them with an audience and a broader audience. And really my hope is just that folks can come across these articles and learn a little bit more themselves and maybe learn how to communicate these ideas a little better. So, Ludwig von Mises talked about the despotism of popular opinion. And he argued that, no government, no rulers can withstand, a groundswell of popular opposition. So, that's just, my website, my social media and everything. That's just kind of my little contribution to try to hopefully sway and move popular opinion towards a free society and against the state.
So I'm going to ask you this for me personally, when I heard the idea that, name a government program that's actually been successful or hasn't failed or completely taken us in the completely opposite direction of their stated goal. And then you start thinking about, well, the war on poverty has created more poverty than ever before. The war on drugs created more drugs than ever before. The harder we try to help people, the worse people's situation tends to become. And once I heard that, I started going down that rabbit hole. That one and the taxation is theft argument is the couple for me that kind of had me start heading down that path. What was it for you that made you go, aha, that's interesting. I need to learn more about that.
Yeah. So, being a conservative, you it's really important to you to say, government should only exist to protect the rights of individuals, right? But then how is government funded? Well, through taxation. And what is taxation if not a violation of your individual rights? So it's just really kind of that last step, that last leap for me to just be ideologically consistent all the way through and take it to the natural end.
You said taxation is a natural violation of your rights. Most people won't catch what you're saying. I know what you mean, but a lot of I think you might have missed the step of taxation is the same as theft.
Right.
And theft is a violation of your human rights.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, once you make that connection.
Yeah.
So, there's that dichotomy where the state is supposed to be protecting your rights, but the way they do that is through violating your rights. So, that logical inconsistency just became unbearable for me. And I had to learn more and study more about different alternatives. And that's when you start learning about, free society, anarcho-capitalism, and how markets, we believe that markets generate superior results in so many aspects of our lives, goods and services. Why can't markets also produce things that we would traditionally leave for the state, like security and defense? And so I started diving into more of that and started learning that, yeah, hey, maybe leaving that to markets is a better alternative than this kind of monopoly of violence that we have with the state.
So you talked about being conservative. How long were you a conservative, and up to what point did you kind of start making that transition over?
Oh, wow. Yeah, gosh, that's a great question. Probably in the conservative camp, but, like in college, I got a little contrarian streak. So in college, everyone is liberal Democrat. So I'm like,
yeah,
I don't want to go around, I just don't want to go along with this crowd. So I was attracted more to conservatism. Kind of grew up in a conservative household.
Okay.
But then just as I started growing a little bit older, having a family, and I just really started getting kind of my foot in the door was economics. That's really kind of my background. But then you start being exposed to the economics of like a Mises, but then you have a desire to learn more and read more about what these folks wrote. And, you get into the philosophical side of Mises and then Rothbard and folks like that. And that's really what kind of led me down. So, I was probably a conservative, traditional conservative for, 8, 9, maybe to 10 years. And then just kind of this, I don't know if it was really flipping on a switch overnight, but it was kind of a gradual transition into the anarcho-capitalist camp.
So that's been more recently, you would say?
Well, I've probably been in that camp now for about a decade now.
Oh, okay. So it's been a while.
Yeah. I'm an old guy. I've been around for a bit, so I've had plenty of years to transition and learn more and continue to learn more. I absolutely love reading, read books by philosophers and economists. Every chance I get.
Right on. So in the interest of time, I know you and I and Anthony, we're all busy men. Anthony's got to get to bed at some point, but
sleep.
And you got to interview. I've got to interview. In the interest of time, I want to kind of take a shortcut and head straight to the topic at hand, because the reason I wanted to talk to you is because here lately we've been seeing a number of major issues. That the media seems to like want to spin them as race issues or some kind of a like the kid that what's his name? What do we call him? The Kenosha kid or Kenosha kid?
The one that killed two individuals and
what's his name? Ritterman, I think was his name. Who shot the protesters in Kenosha. Anyway, so I've gotten in arguments where people are like, yeah, this guy's a definite white supremacist, and I'll sit there. How can you tell? So it's become chaos, is the point. And what I would like to pick your brain on is, in a stateless society, what would be the solutions to these things, or maybe what would be a potential solution for these things, insofar as you have one side calling for defund the police, which as an anarchist I kind of agree with, but their methods are like totally bunk. I don't agree with how they're doing it.
It's the concept you only agree with. I
find myself being in that, I don't want to say a middle ground, but agreeing with some parts of this side and some parts of that side. And it's like, But
it's not possible right now. You know that.
I know. You can't just be in the middle. People are forcing you harder and harder.
They want you to pick a side. This is how this works, and you've known that for a while.
So what I wanted to ask you, Bradley, was like, what do you think, as you're seeing this, what would be a potential solution for this in a stateless society? Like, how would we solve this in a volunteeristic type way?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of what we're seeing on the streets, we need to attribute that to the chaos created by this a government-created vacuum. We have mayors, and then we have governors refusing to protect the property of business owners and refusing the help. President Trump is offering to send troops in to help. I don't know if that's a good or bad solution, but this is just kind of what's happening when politics gets in the way. If we talk about defund the police, how about privatize the police? I think maybe is a better adage to abide by. So in a free society, first off, the roads, which right now are, of course, government funded and government owned, the roads themselves would be privately owned. The properties would be privately owned, and there would be private securities that would have the incentive to protect their property of their clients. It wouldn't be all politicized, where we have elected officials, governors, mayors, and everything arguing about how to handle it. Right there, the private police, private securities would be there and have every incentive to protect the property of their customers. Really is what it would boil down to. And, there's a different incentive at play when security is produced on the marketplace versus government, because the private security actors, they have this incentive to want to try to maintain their customers, their clients. Clients, if there's a market, clients could, if a security agency is not doing the job, not living up to their promises, they can be fired and go elsewhere. So security agencies would have incentive to protect their clients because they want to maintain their client base, and also because of their reputation. Reputation is super important in any market for goods and services, and so these security firms would really want to maintain a good reputation as well. So I think there's this, you need to strike a contrast between the government provision of security versus a voluntary market in security.
So given the recent climate that we're in and seeing just how bad things are right now, where do you find that starting point to make that transition? I mean, because right now things are just in complete chaos. So how do you move into that state, from where we're currently at right now? I mean, how would you propose we do something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good question. I don't think there's any easy answers, and I don't think it's something that's gonna could possibly take place in a real short period of time. I think a big part of it, and I think we're taking some steps. Tragically, what we're seeing is tragedies, but I think one outgrowth of them is that there's a growing skepticism of government policing. So I think that's kind of the first big step, and people questioning whether government is the best provider of security. I think that's the first big step towards seeing actual change and having some discussions. The whole defund the police thing, I don't know if that's the best message, because it gets a little muddled. Well, some will say, well, we don't really mean defund the police. What we mean is just shifting resources from here to there.
Right.
It's,
and then
government intervention that they say is going to solve the problems.
So a couple things, just brainstorming, shooting from the hip here as a potential solution or a move toward a solution. I'm sitting there thinking, if I'm a private business and I want to hire security, it's going to cost me X amount of dollars, and I got to roll those costs into the cost of business. And since none of the other businesses around me have the incentive to do so because they're just relying on the state to come in and do it, it becomes so cost burdensome that I can't do it. First of all, so there's that. There's the obvious competition from the state. Not to mention that there's so many rules and regulations I'm sure that they have to abide by, so many crippling regulations that prevent a private security firm from starting up because they have to, they can't just carry firearms the way that the police can, or they can't, they can't properly arm themselves or have, whatever the case is. Again, just shooting from the hip. But if we maybe as a potential first step, we start removing some of those restrictions, keeping private security firms from coming in and actually doing the job that the police just can't do. The second thing is, it's interesting how everybody on both sides of this equation, so to speak, are both trying to figure out how to get the government to solve the problem, right?
We're too dependent on the government.
Yeah, it's not whether the government should solve the problem or not. It's okay, my government solution is this, and your government solution is that. Which one is going to win? And everybody else is like, okay, now we got to pick a side because these are clearly the only two options, right?
That's what we've been told and fed for so long.
So for us to sit down and start brainstorming, okay, well, how about we just get rid of all that? What does it look like?
But again, you need a jumping off point.
Right.
And this is why I feel like what we're seeing right now in our society, we're shifting that way. I think the more people, and the loss of human life is never a good thing, regardless of the situation. We know this. But like you alluded to, this seems like we're starting to see, I wouldn't say so much a revolution, but I think what we're seeing is we're seeing this shift in our politics, we're seeing a shift in our local government, and we're seeing a shift in our people. And, a system can only last for so long. And when that system becomes old and outdated, people start finding different avenues that they want to look for to find better solutions. Right. So, for me, it's like, okay, where do you think that jumping off point would be? And to me, I think we're seeing it in probably a negative way. But I think at the end of the day, probably 5-10 years from now, things are going to look a lot different than what they currently are. So to me, do you feel like this might be some sort of transition that we're going through right now? I mean, given what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of great points you guys are making. It kind of brings to mind this quote. I can't recall who said it, but I'm going to paraphrase it. If they can keep you from asking the right questions, they don't have to worry about the answers.
Right.
So kind of alluding back to what Daniel was saying, right now the question is, should government solve this through A, or should government solve this through B? The real question should be, should government be involved at all?
Right.
What about a voluntary market in security? What would that look like? Is that going to be better? So we need to start, I think a big jumping off point, as you're alluding to, is just starting to ask the different questions. And that makes the answers become much more difficult.
I think we're starting to see, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think we're starting to see that because of what's currently going on. And people are getting to a point where they're fed up. They want something different. And I think that's another reason is why Trump was elected in office. We got tired of the career politicians. We wanted something different. And, when people ask me this question, as far as what we're discussing, I think Trump being elected was that turning point. Because I think the American people are just, they're thriving and they're just wanting something to propel them in a different direction, because I see it time and time again, everybody's just so hung up on, getting rid of the career politicians, and they're biting at the chomps to want to invoke something new. And it seems like the last 4 years he's been in office, we have been seeing this. Maybe not in the best way, but yeah, I think Trump being elected has kind of pushed us in that direction.
Yeah, I think there's a growing frustration of people just seeing the same solutions being proposed time and time again. The Democrats, for all their bluster about change and everything else, look who they nominated for the president, a career politician who's been in D.C. almost 50 years.
Yeah, 47 years, I believe.
Look at what we're confronted. We went from a Trump-Hillary election to a Trump-Joe Biden election. How much longer are people going to stand for this? To your point, Trump definitely was a bit of a shift for the Republican Party. He shook up the Republican establishment. So I think there's some hope there that people are starting to see through the two-party system, and that those two parties are not always, they're more concerned with their own power and winning the next election versus actually doing what's best for the country and trying to eliminate the barriers to freedom that government presents to us every day.
So let me ask you this here. There seems to be two schools of thought, and I can't really find fault with either one. And one says that you should vote, even though you're participating in a system of coercion, because it's a self-defense thing. And then the other side says that you should not vote because just to participate in that system of coercion means you are implicit in that system of coercion, and you're also committing those crimes where you have a voluntary choice not to. Which side do you kind of lean on in terms of that? Are you a voter, non-voter? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, God, that's a good question, and I'm gonna say that I'm sympathetic to both sides of that argument. There certainly are some candidates out there. The Libertarian Party. For all their flaws, they still, especially at the local level, they can present some viable candidates that are going to implement some positive changes. Are going to try to. And the local level, let's not forget how important that is. Imagine, think about the power that a local bureaucrat has over your life when you're trying to start a new business, or zoning laws and everything like that. So I think it's still worthwhile voting in certain cases, but I certainly would not advocate, well, you have to pick between Trump or Biden, the lesser of two evils. No, don't vote for the lesser of two evils. That's still voting for evil. Right. If there's not someone on that ballot, whether it's a national or local level, that's not worthy of your vote, then don't vote for them. Don't give consent to someone that you largely disagree with just because they're not as bad as the other person.
Right. Man.
Well, I think this election is gonna shift that way. People are voting basically straight off of the fact they just hate Trump. People are not going to vote for Biden because they simply don't want to be harassed and touched and sniffed. I'm being honest with you.
The ballot just needs to say something like, something like, do you hate Trump? Do you love Trump? And that's it. That's all you need.
Let me ask you this real quick, and I know we're kind of tight on time, but do you think that local government should have way more power, than the government itself? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, state versus local.
Yeah, state versus local,
federal.
Yes.
Yeah, well, of course, I think governments at all levels should have far less power overall.
Well, yeah,
but
yeah.
Right, to the extent that there is government power, yeah, I definitely favor it being far more localized than federalized or nationalized, I should
Absolutely. That'd be a step in the right
you know,
direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
right,
sure.
because you have city council members that you'll see at the grocery store or in your neighborhood. You could have a lot more impact at the local level, and plus there's the opportunity to escape. Right, if your community passes laws that you don't like or the taxes are too high, when power is far more localized, it's a lot easier to move just to the next town over that's maybe more hospitable to your views and your needs,
Right.
versus so much coming down from the federal level. I mean, that's far more difficult to escape.
And it's much
Yeah.
less of, it doesn't seem like such an insurmountable challenge, obstacle to actually vote out somebody that's in your local area, so that makes sense. And I would prefer people like you be more involved in their local politics than the federal level politics. I mean, fuck it, let's just get rid of federal level politics and call it a day. But I know you and I both know that's not going to happen anytime soon. So let me go ahead and give you an opportunity to just again tell people where they can reach you, and we look forward to having you on again and have further discussions.
Oh, I want a longer episode with him.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you guys for the opportunity. And erasethestate.com is my website. I also do want to put a quick mention. I just recently released an ebook that folks can check out. It's called Tweeting Liberty, and it's really just kind of a resource tool for folks to better communicate their ideas. The ideas of liberty. It's really organized into about a dozen different topics, and it's literally just tweets that you can take and use and help you win arguments or have a comeback for when someone is trying to challenge your views. You can check that out at tweetingliberty.com. And of course, on Twitter, you can follow me at Erase State.
Awesome. I so appreciate
Good
it.
deal.
And again, we look forward to having you on again.
Yes.
And
I've got so many more questions too.
All right, Bradley. Thanks again, and we look forward to it next time.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
Absolutely.
And you folks have been watching another episode of the Unframe of Mind show, where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom. And this conversation's been no different. If you want to find out more information, head over to unframeofmind.com, and you can find all of our links there. We sell merch. We have all that good stuff there. So if you want to support the show, that would be awesome. Head over there, check out our content, check out our stuff. We create new designs all the time. We got a private Facebook group that you guys can be a part of if you're not in it.
Discord.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we got a private group. We're moving over to Discord because Facebook can suck my dick. Anyway, y'all have a good one.
See ya.